Looks like I need to argue with Peter Hitchens again. He's bringing back 90s boomerism. I have a sneaking suspicion why the Southport child killer Axel Radicubana suddenly turned to violence at the age of 13. I had to get an archive link because behind the bloody paywall. A society that does not deserve to survive, does not that does not think does not deserve to survive. The national reaction to the case of the teenage mass killer Axel Radicubana is totally unthinking from top to bottom. Does anyone really believe, as Sir Keir Starmer does, that making knives slightly harder to buy will stop knife crime? No, so that's a brilliant idea dealt with, and no, it doesn't work. They've done it in Scotland, and we still have really, really bad knife crime. Next, some try to pretend that Radicubana, I'm just going to call him Axel, I hate that bloody name, an ignorant, vicious, unhinged dimwit is a political terrorist because he once looked at a terrorist website on his laptop. They hope this will excuse their dangerous rumour mongering at the time of the Southport killings, which led to an outbreak of lawless violence. It will not. Radicubana is not a terrorist any more than Paddington Bear is a terrorist. He's a terrorist. He literally is a terrorist. The idea is idiotic. He is plainly crazy, as are many of those who kill on our streets. Now, what possibly could Peter Hitchens be trying to blame here? A significant number of British people are killed each year by mentally ill persons, though accurate figures are increasingly hard to find. This fact especially does not suit the government, which cannot afford to rebuild the badly needed mental hospitals it stupidly sold off 40 years ago. And yeah, I know people that work in like the mental health sector and all that, and basically shutting down the asylums was one of the dumbest things that they've ever done. One thing that a lot of people don't know about is there were people that were in these places who were like fully institutionalized. They'd been in these places for decades because they were just not well enough to go out into the public. And what they'd done was they called it care in the community, where they gave them a flat, they gave them a house, and they send nurses out to their house 3 times a day. Right, it's extremely expensive and it doesn't work. And for the institutionalized people, a lot of them died within months of being placed in these flats. A lot of them died within months. They couldn't call. Oh yeah, are you used to just having your meals in the cafeteria and your medication given to you and all that type of shit? Like by everyone around you, you've been catered to and institutionalized for decades. Now we're going to fling you out into a strange world that has changed somewhat in the last 30 years, and mentally they could not cope. They couldn't cope. It was terrible for them, and a lot of them died. They just immediately developed health problems and just died. Shutting the asylums was a really stupid thing to do. I did a security contract, and you're not allowed to call them an asylum. It's a mental health care facility. And I'm not going to say where it was, but it was only a temporary contract because there was construction work being done, and basically the security team was split between the old location and the new location that was still under construction. So I got brought in as an external contractor, and I had the part where it was people who were criminally insane and they were being brought in for their psychiatric evaluations, either before their trial or to decide whether or not they should be moved out of prison and into somewhere like Carstairs, which is the asylum for the mentally insane, for the criminally insane. Uh, and I saw some shit. I saw some shit when I was in there. Woo, saw some literal shit. They like to cover themselves in their shit. That's fun. But anyway, this fact especially did. I've just done that. Axel became crazy around the age of 12 or 13 between being filmed dressed as Doctor Who, cheerful and normal, and becoming the blank-eyed, masked, mumbling grotesque which he now is. Axel began to display anger issues and start to turn to violence around the age of 13. That is usually the point that children of Britain first encounter marijuana. He's blaming weed. He's blaming Axel Radicubana on weed. He's blaming the Southport killings on weed. I'm not joking. That is the most boomer thing ever. Like, I can tell you right now that Peter Hitchens has never smoked weed. Right, and basically, see if you've never smoked weed and actually experienced it, I'm not interested in hearing your opinion on it. Oh, well, doctors said this thing about the illegal substance. Like, I'm not interested. Right, unless you've actually smoked it, I'm not interested in hearing your opinion. Within a couple of years, many of them are irreparably damaged and some are crazily violent. Now, as for causing violent and crazy behaviour and mental illnesses and stuff like that, that's not been proven, but on people under the age of 25, it does, however, slow brain development. So it doesn't make you crazy, it makes you stupid. Right, your brain doesn't develop enough if you smoke weed too early. Right, I don't remember when I started. Right, now, so, where you smoke weed? I'm Count Dankula. What do you think it meant? right? But I have strict rules, which I'll get into at the end. This happens whether the children involved are in bog standard comps, slick academies, or in the smoothest fee charging establishments. Marijuana harms all who take it, not least because its victims are told falsely that it is soft. In fact, it is as soft as a nailed club. Have you ever smoked it, Peter? Have you ever smoked it? You haven't, therefore you have no idea what you're talking about. Their young brains are half-formed and gravely vulnerable. It is now quite clear that in some cases the harm is deep and terrible. Basically, again, if you smoke it, it hampers your brain development. It does. If you're too young, it hampers your brain development. But then after a certain age, it doesn't matter. Right, so should kids be smoking it? No, absolutely no, they shouldn't. Just the same as kids shouldn't be drinking alcohol. Thousands of British families have seen their children tragically decline around this point in their lives. Some lose the will to work or study and begin lives of drifting. Some lose their minds and can never find them again. In others, it is much, much worse. This is one of the biggest recent social changes in our society, and nobody does anything about it because nobody talks about it. Did you miss the 90s? Peter, you were alive then. Everybody was talking about it all the time. All these idiots that thought that they were doctors and researchers and all that stuff. I saw an article that said blah, and everything, right? Now, I'll save it all for the end. Enforcing the law against marijuana possession is one of the many things the police and courts no longer do. I can tell you that's a lie. If you're caught with enough of it, you do get charged. But these days, it has been for a while, the police give less and less of a shit about it. That is why there will be another Axel along pretty soon. Shut up. Not that anyone will tell you so, because he will not have been arrested for his illegal drug use, so there will be no record of it. All psychiatrists know that some crazy people like to dignify their craziness by adopting political or religious causes they don't know anything about. For example, in 2015, a young man called Muhyiddin Meyer went crazy with a knife at Leiston Underground Station in London. He called out, "This is for Syria," as he wielded his blade, seriously injuring one of his 3 victims. I doubt he knew where Syria is then or later. For it turned out that he had gone mad after, yes, smoking a lot of marijuana. That's not how weed works. That's just not how it works. He was, in fact, so mad that he literally thought that Sir Anthony Blair was his guardian angel. He was so mad that his family had tried to get him put away in a secure mental hospital. Alas, these are all full and harder to get into than Oxbridge colleges, so their plea was refused. Now, if you do have existing mental issues, then smoking weed can make it worse, the exact same way that alcohol can. In fact, alcohol has a much, much harsher effect on existing mental conditions, things like depression, anxiety, etc., etc. Right? So basically, are you calling to ban alcohol, Peter? No, you're not. You're just being an old boomer from the bloody 90s. Even after all this came out, our judicial system continued to insist that his crime was in some way political. Well, there are few better ways to ensure that such horrors continue to happen. Every time they take place, some minister or police chief will at some point say grandly that this must never happen again. As they say it, I know it will happen. I've been saying this unceasingly for about 15 years, so I know it's a bit early to expect anyone to pay any attention. But our long, stupid indulgence of marijuana has a huge, bloody price tag attached. This is cringe. And if you want more Southports, you had blinking well better do something about it. I think that's the end of the article. This is just weird. This is about something else unrelated. Okay. I'm a weed user. Right, and I'm not trying to just do this as anecdotal, right? Yes, there are some people who have existing mental health issues where if they smoke weed or drink alcohol or take any kind of mind-altering substance, it makes it a lot worse. So that's not just weed, it's any mind-altering substance. Also, yes, if you smoke weed very early in your life before your brain is fully developed, it can hamper the development of your brain, but it doesn't specifically create any mental health problems, it basically makes you dumb. Right, because your brain's not finished growing yet. However, again, maybe I'm an outlier, right? But basically, I smoke weed, but I don't touch anything else. I don't like any other drugs. I don't even like being around them. And in my circles, niche internet micro-celebrity, a lot of people do cocaine, right? And I'm not interested in it. Hey, you want to feel sweaty and anxious for 15 minutes for like 60 quid or however much it costs now? No, I don't. Like, that sounds awful. Sounds fucking terrible. No, I don't want that. Right, but what you do with your approach to weed, right, is you just view it the same way as alcohol. Would you wake up and first thing in the morning have a beer? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't do that. Would you get drunk when you've got your children? No, you wouldn't do that, right? Would you get drunk and then get behind the wheel of a car? No, you wouldn't do that. Just view weed the exact same way, right? And also, whenever I say I smoke weed, I don't do bongs, I don't do buckets, don't do dabs, I don't do anything. I make myself my one single joint, which I have at the end of the day only if I've got my work done, right? And as for weed makes you lazy, you have any idea how much I work? I'm pulling like almost every single day, apart from one day of the week, which I was advised to set aside for an actual day off. I'm doing like 10, 11-hour days, right? Like, and then I have my little joint at night, and then I chill, play a little bit of Marvel Rivals, and then I say I chill. I write my comedy. I write my comedy at night when I'm high because it makes it better. Most of the, like, 80% of the time. Sometimes I wake up the next morning and look at what I wrote and I'll be like, that's not funny. And then I'll cross it out. Right, but basically, as for weed, saying it makes you... I hate it when people go into court and go, Your Honour, I smoked a joint. That's why I stabbed 300 people. You're an idiot, right? That's what Peter Hitchens is basing all of this on. Basically, oh no, I was on it. Have you ever tried to fight anyone on weed? You know, to quote Bill Hicks, it's fucking impossible. I've been in very, very many fights when I've been drunk. I've never once in my life been in a fight when I've been smoking weed. Never once. The thought doesn't even enter my mind. I don't think it can. Right? The only thing that's a threat to me is the fridge. That is the downside of weed if you're trying to lose weight, because no one smokes a joint and goes, oh, I really want a salad. Like, no one's ever done that ever. You're like, I want cake. I want Cheetos. You want everything that's bad for you. That's the biggest risk. Now, as for weed, weed's not for everyone. If you're one of the people where it's like, I smoked it and I got a little bit anxious, then, well, weed's not for you. Sorry. Right? Just the same as not everyone can drink alcohol. You all know someone who, whenever you see them drinking, you're like, oh, fuck. They're going to be a fucking nightmare tonight. Like, yeah, there are people out there that can't drink alcohol. There are people just the same as there are people out there that can't smoke weed. I'm not saying you should smoke weed. Right, I'm not saying that you can. It's either for you or not. Like, you enjoy it or you don't. That's completely fine. Right? However, you just have strict rules with it. Don't wake and bake all day. Don't smoke. I smoked a giant fucking dab. You're an idiot. You've just wasted so much weed because your body can only absorb so much of the THC and cannabinoid. Right? The rest of it just gets flushed out of your system. You can only get so high. There is a limit. There is a limit to how high your body will let you get. That's why there was that famous video. That man smoked a 28-gram dab and it was a world record. But he only got so high. Like, you're idiots if you're doing that. I won't walk in and, like, take a bong because that's the equivalent of walking into the bar and ordering 3 shots. That's when you get your friends going, everything okay at home, buddy? No, it isn't. Right? But you just adopt rules. You can be a sensible weed smoker. Instead of sitting on that couch all day with like 50 empty cans of Monster on your little dining table while you sit there watching meme compilations, you just don't smoke weed all day. It's your little treat at the end of the night when it's time to chill and after you've got your work done. And I feel like after some of the fucking 10, 11-hour days I pull, I've earned it. Right? So you can be a sensible weed user. Or not. Or just don't use weed at all. That's fine. One thing I do, what I would advocate against though, is try not to smoke it. Edible weed, an edible high is a completely different kind of high. I don't like edibles. I don't like edibles at all. I don't do the edibles. But basically, see everybody that's doing all the, 420 man, blaze it up, and all that stuff. You're no different from a tobacco company, right? Anything combustible that you inhale causes cancer, right? So don't advocate for combustible ways of consuming weed. Right, like, see, for example, I don't have one. I used to have one, but it fucking broke. What's it called again? The thing that basically is like an evaporator type thing. It evaporates the crystals in the CBD and you're just inhaling evaporated crystals. That one. That's like a safer way of doing it because you're not inhaling all the crap and giving yourself lung cancer. Right, so basically, smoke weed or don't, I don't care. You're all big boys and big girls and you get to decide what goes into your body. All the other drugs, I would definitely tell you, don't do them. They're so fucking bad for you. They're really bad for you. However, Again, you're big boys and big girls, you're free to make your own mistakes. However, if you do want to be a weed smoker, just don't fucking do it morning, day, night, like fucking talking all the fucking time, because that's when you end up a complete couch potato and you've got nothing done. Right? Maybe I'm one of the very few lucky ones where I can smoke weed and I can still get shit tons of work done. I'm literally running 3 companies at the moment, and we're doing great. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's not. However, leave this boomerism bullshit in the 90s where it belongs.